All right. So thanks everybody for joining. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrea Weigl. I was a journalist for 20 years. I worked at the News and Observer. For about 7 years, I covered the Wake County Courthouse. And then for about 10, I covered the food scene in the Triangle. And then I went off and did TV and film production for about 5 years. And then I kind of fell sideways into doing PR for restaurants and hotels in the Triangle. So my former sources kind of figured out that I was doing this now. And so they asked me if I could help them. When Jennifer and McKenna asked me to do this, I've been having a lot of conversations with my clients, explaining to them kind of the power they have in their hands as small business owners when they have news to share generally. And and it's really been something I've had to educate my clients on. So I wanted to kind of equip folks with like the basics they need to understand about the media, and then what they can do to kind of take advantage of the opportunities that may present themselves and be proactive to get media coverage. So my assumptions for this seminar are that you are not hiring somebody like me, that you are going to try to do this yourself, and that you're going to maybe have help from somebody on your team. So here are the basics. Not all news is created equal. So you have to kind of understand when you approach media how newsy your news is. When I deal with restaurants, bars, hotel openings, there are two moments when my client's news is like got the most potential for coverage. First is when we're announcing the project. So when you're making that initial announcement, I'm going to open a brick and mortar, I'm going to start a business, I'm going to whatever. That is a great opportunity. That's a great news peg for your story. And then the second time you can get really good coverage is when you actually around the opening. Other reasons you might have to reach out to the media are you're launching a new product line, your business is doing something, a new offering, you have an event, even a charitable event. There is less potential for news coverage there, but there's still good potential. And so it's still worth your effort. I often tell my clients that you don't want just news coverage when you start, launch, open your business. You want a steady drumbeat of mentions in the press. And so these events you might put on, a new menu that you might be offering, those kind of things, those are ways to get mentions along the way. They'll be smaller, they won't be as prominent, but they're totally worth your time and your investment of time to get them. I don't know who does PR for Layered Croissant after they opened, or if it was just the business owner, but she changes her menu of like specialty pastries every month. And I swear to God, every month I would see that mentioned in the media somewhere for about a year after they opened. And that was totally worth the effort because it kept their shop's name out there in the press. And then there's opportunities, and I'll call them, when I was in the newsroom, we called them kind of evergreen stories. But these, when you're on your side, it's kind of evergreen opportunities is what I would call them. They're kind of annual events that happen in this market that reporters are going to have to cover. So every time Dreamville comes up, there's going to be a reporter or two in this town who's writing about the economic impact of that event on small businesses in town. And so understanding that you can, that opportunity might come to you, or you can put yourself in front of a reporter as somebody who can speak to that is always a thing you need to train yourself to do. And there's also, I also mentioned like the seasons. News is cyclical, and we have to write a lot of stories related to the seasons. whether it's back to school or holidays, like right now, I'm getting my clients ready to start sharing with me what they're doing around the holidays. Are they offering to-go meals at Thanksgiving? Are they got dinner? Do they have dinner reservations? Do they have a Santa coming into their restaurant? Are they doing a holiday tea? Like at the beginning of November, I need to start reaching out to media about all the holiday offerings my clients have, because every place in town writes some kind of holiday event roundup, and I want to make sure my clients are on that list. So you definitely, if you're doing that, you definitely want to look at, okay, who wrote about this last year? Who should I reach out to let them know I've got a Santa in my store, or I'm doing a holiday cocktail? So those are the things you should be thinking about. One other thing is that, those national whatever days. This is works more with TV and newsletters and some content creators. They're often looking for content or things to promote around these for national holidays. Made up national holidays is what I consider them, but whatever. So like My Carolina reached out. They were looking for somebody for National Pizza Day. And so I found somebody who could do it for them. I'm taking the guys from Local Seafood back on My Carolina on CBS 17 because October Seafood Month, that kind of thing. So you want to just be tuned into those because there might be opportunities around them. To kind of figure out the puzzle that is how to get press coverage, you have to be a news consumer. You have to kind of understand the media landscape in this market. The media is very fractured these days. It's no longer like the newspaper and the big three television stations. There's the Business Journal and Indie Week, and we've got Spectrum. I know people may not think, why would I want to spend the time to be on a Spectrum newscast for people who haven't cut cable? But here's the good thing about Spectrum. If they ever come knocking on your door, they post every story they do online. And so then you can promote it. They also repurpose the stories that are done here for their markets in Asheville and Triad and Charlotte. So often, if you do a Spectrum story, you can get statewide coverage. And, REL can't offer that. So that's one thing to remember about them. Newsletters in the marketplace. Axios is great. Raw Today is also great, especially if you have events. There's at least 6 magazines in this market that are outlets for potential coverage. There are podcasts related to some of these media outlets, but also there are just like independent podcasters in the market who are excited about Raleigh and what makes Raleigh unique and want to champion the people in it. And so if you are a fan of this media, I would think about how could I approach them to get my story told. There's also a lot of niche and trade publications. I didn't know until I started working with hotels that that there were publications like Hospitality Design or Hotel Management. I didn't know until the foundation attached to Smithfield donated to a nonprofit that I worked with that there were such publications as National Hog Farmer or Swine Web. I mean, there are publications for every subculture you can even think of. All right, so here's the advice I would say for what you can do as a business owner. Don't squander your opportunities. When media requests come your way, I want you to the answer is always yes. This is what I tell my client. The answer is always yes, and then you figure out how you're going to make it happen. The only time I want you to say no, and this is like the rare time when the reporter comes to you and they have a story angle and your business is not a good fit for them for this story. And in that case, you are going to help that reporter by recommending they talk to somebody else. Because what you want to do is become a friend to that reporter and like a resource for them. So my best advice is, and that's where it leads to like, be helpful. You want to really be helpful for these reporters, because then they will come back. It might not have worked out on this story, but you helped them on that last one. So they may circle back to you when they have a story that's a better fit. The other thing I would really urge you to do is be prepared. So for each of my clients, I have a couple things always on hand for when reporters are on deadline and I need to supply things for them. I always have a selection of images related to their business. And it can be, I often want a horizontal exterior shot of their business. I want horizontal interior. I want detail shots of the products that they sell or offer. I want a portrait of the founder. And I need like 6 to 10 images. That's it. But I need to have that in a Dropbox folder so that I can share that link with any reporter who comes my way. I mean, I was just doing that with a client today for somebody who's working on a story at Thrillist, and their deadline is Thursday. And so I need to be able to quickly turn that around so that my client doesn't miss that opportunity. You also need like a small bio, like 1 paragraph of the bio for the founder and for the company, so that you'll also see this referred to as boilerplate at the bottom of a press release. And it's just like a quick hit thing. The company was founded in this year. It is headquartered in this city. This is a little brief 1 or 2 sentences of the origin story. I want to know its reach, like that if you ship things, that it's been delivered to sold to customers all over the world, that it's been featured in these high profile publications or these publications in your marketplace. I want to know if it's a brick and mortar, I want to know its address, its hours, its website, its social media handles. You want all of that basic information in 1 paragraph that you can easily hand to a reporter so they have the background information that they need. And then if you do get this opportunity from a reporter, they've come over the transom, they interview you, the story is posted, please send a follow-up note. Send a thank you, tell them what you liked about the story, tell them about how it came back to you that other people saw the coverage. Like, was it your 3rd grade teacher who reached out because they saw you on the news? Was it your grandmama who was so proud? Reporters don't hear enough of that and love to hear that. So please definitely, this is part of building relationships with writers and reporters and editors, and it's so very helpful. So the other way is beyond being reactive when stuff kind of comes organically to you, you can be proactive. So figure out who in the market is covering businesses like yours, and reach out to them, introduce yourself. Find out who your fans are. Among your social media followers, you may have local reporters, anchors, editors, publications. Figure out who they are. Those are already your fans. They are already familiar with your business and your brand. That's a great starting point for building relationships with the media. Yeah, so definitely you want to reach out, introduce yourself and your business. Offer samples if that makes sense for your business. Invite them to an event. And here's how I think about events. If you're opening a new business, as part of your soft opening process, you definitely want to have an event where you invite media and influencers. If you if that is long gone and you're just trying to raise brand awareness, you've done a renovation, you're getting ready for your holiday market, you've launched a new menu. Then it's an opportunity to invite people in to kind of remind them that you're here, that you're thriving, that this is a business that they should know about, just to get on people's radar. So you could do an event like that, or if you do classes or you do dinners, you can set aside 1 or 2 seats for media and content creators each time. And once you have your list of fans and media you want to approach, reach out and invite them. It's a good way just to make sure they're more familiar with your business and what you're offering. And here's the other thing that I will say is one connection is all you need to a media outlet, can be all you need to a media outlet. I can't tell you how many times I get a phone call at 9:30 in the morning from often a TV reporter, and they were referred to me by somebody else in the newsroom. So if you have had a good experience with somebody at CBS 17, they're in the morning meeting and they're hearing what the stories that everybody's working on. And they might say, oh, you should reach out to so-and-so. He was really helpful. He or she was really helpful on a story I did. Even it, and the good part is if they know that you're not a good fit, you're going to refer them to other people and you're not always engaging them in your own self-interest. That is really beneficial in building those kind of relationships. Let's see. Okay, so I want to kind of share an example of a client I helped, but I think it'll illustrate kind of maybe what you should do if you're doing something like this. So I might have to, so I helped Local Seafood earlier this year with the announcement of their East Raleigh retail market. And so I'm gonna escape and share something else on my screen so that you can see this. Okay, so this is my media coverage report for East Raleigh. And so I'm gonna scroll down and I'm gonna show you how this story kind of unfolded. So, can you guys see that?
I don't think we can see it.
Oh no, that would suck. Hold on. Oh, let me get this right. Here we go. Did that work?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. Okay, so there was a lot of interest in this this new thing from Local Seafood because they had closed their restaurant at Transfer and they had bought this facility in East Raleigh, which was going to be their fish house basically. So they could process more seafood, and they were going to have a retail market in there. And originally they thought they were going to be able to have some kind of restaurant there. And so I think that had generated a lot of buzz, but in the end, the project morphed and they weren't able to do that. So Raleigh Magazine broke this story more or less around like opening time frame on March 28th, 2024. And then everybody else ignored it, which is not great. That's not what you want to happen. When you have news to share, you want as many people as possible to share it. And I got hired after Raleigh Magazine had already had this story published. And so I have to come up with a reason. We know they're open. We have to come up with a reason for why media is going to cover us now. So the reason we came up with was we're going to do a grand opening. So we chose a date in May 18th, where we're going to do a grand opening. We're going to offer a discount if you came in to shop that day. So there's a reason for the public to come on all these amazing seafood kits that they were going to do. So it was like, so then we do this press release. And as you'll see, so we announced this grand opening and we go about explaining why this is a big deal. This is the largest inland seafood processing center, one of the largest inland seafood processing centers in the state. They got some grant funding from the state, and then we detail all of the discounts and stuff that they're going to have, which is like a reason for the public to come in on this particular grand opening day. So that got sent out on May 1st. The News and Observer picked it up. Triangle Business Journal picked it up. Midtown Magazine. So I don't know if I mentioned this in newsletters section. A lot of the magazines have newsletters. So you can get a story written about you, or you can get a mention in the newsletter, which is also very helpful. So Midtown mentioned it in their newsletter. RAL mentioned it in their foodie news on Friday. Raw Today picked it up. Axios sent a reporter out and they did a story. Raleigh Magazine circled back and did an Instagram post, which their social media is very good. We got some nice engagement there. Then we got them on WRAL and CBS 17 to talk about it. And then as we got closer to the grand opening, we got a flurry of little mentions. So Indie Week had it in a newsletter, and then RAL mentioned us again on their Friday. We got Ryan Speckman, one of the founders, on WPTF. We got some food bloggers. We got the Raleigh Magazine Friday, Raleigh Weekend newsletter, Raleigh Patch, which is a weird news aggregator, another local. And so that was all the coverage we got around the leading up to the opening. And then we had other follow-up coverage. So the Indie Week saved it and did a big story for their food issue in June. And then Spectrum News had come out in around the time that we were doing all of this, but they saved their story till July. So this is an opportunity to mention one other thing. You know, around holidays, newsrooms are short-staffed. So they're often looking for stories that they can kind of squirrel away to run around the holidays. This is an example of an evergreen. You know, they could have used this around the news peg of the opening, but they instead decided to save it until they didn't have a lot of reporters in the newsroom, because everybody tried to take July 4th week off. And then they used it then. And this, I remember it ran across the state. So let me go back. To this. Can you guys see that now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so that's what so kind of the lessons you can take away from that is like, don't limit yourself. If Raleigh Magazine or one outlet breaks the story, you can immediately share it with other media to try to generate more coverage. Because what you don't want to happen is share it with one media outlet and the rest of them just ignore it. That's not a good situation for you. So definitely, like, if you have a special relationship with any one media outlet and want to give them an exclusive, you know, I think that's fine, but you don't want that to be the only thing. You want to be proactive on getting other media to cover it. And the other lesson is that you can sometimes create reasons for the media to mention you. I don't know that they would have done a grand opening if not for me saying you need to do a grand opening, and we need to make sure there are reasons for why the public would want to turn out for the grand opening. And so why don't we do discounts on these seafood kits that you guys are already selling? And that gives the media reason to want to broadcast the news. We often do ribbon cuttings for another client, and I'm not saying you get a lot of media that show up at ribbon cuttings, but what will happen is that, so I'll give you an example. I work for this nonprofit called Ripe for Revival. They have a fleet of mobile like grocery stores. They've converted old campus buses and trailers into grocery stores, and they take them into food deserts. And they serve all over Eastern North Carolina, and they're coming more into the Triangle. And they get money from like Smithfield. They get money from Coastal Federal Credit Union to sponsor these trailers and buses. And we do a ribbon cutting on every single one of them. And we get news coverage every time. And it may just be the local newspaper shows up or one TV station sends somebody, but we always have a photographer there. We take pictures and I send the pictures to the assignment desks. And it doesn't happen every time, but often I will get coverage based on those pictures I've submitted to the television station assignment desks. And so you can get more traction that way. And it may not be in the 5 o'clock or the 6 o'clock news. It might be at 11 o'clock. It might be in the morning turn. I'll take a morning turn if I get mentions in the 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the 8 o'clock news. Okay, so McKenna, I asked if anybody had any questions. And so these are the questions you guys had. So, and we might still have time at the end to answer some more if people have them. But here, I'll go through some of I think we had 5 questions that came in ahead of time. So what are some cost-effective PR strategies to build relationships with local media and influencers? So I've mentioned some of these before, but I definitely think having an open house, having a way to like gather people in, kind of show off your business. I'll tell you, I do these with a lot of my hotel clients and restaurant clients. You know, I invite 100 people. I'm happy if 30 or 40 show up. You know, not everybody is going to show up, but like every person who walks through the door is an opportunity to like build a relationship and have a conversation and raise your brand's awareness. I also think if you are a business that does any kind of events, that definitely extending invitations to media or influencers is a good idea. And it doesn't have to be a whole big production. It can just be a handful of people that you just add to the invite list, or one person, or you set aside 1 or 2 seats at an event. If it's some kind of class or special dinner or that kind of thing. I also think for content creators in particular, that if you have some that are fans of your business, that a giveaway is often a great way to partner with them, especially you're not going to get the Magnolia Megans or, you know, Chris Loves Julia or whatever, but you might get an influencer who's trying to grow their audience and will work with you to help you grow your audience and brand awareness. And I think, I just think that some really great relationships can come out of that kind of outreach. The next question is, how can I handle negative press or online reviews in a way that protects my brand reputation? So if lawyers are involved, if your insurance company has been called and they are have hired lawyers, you should hire a PR person. That is, if lawyers are involved, your business is at risk. I have helped a couple crisis situations. The advice I give people is to stop talking, especially if lawyers are involved, because the lawyers have to have time to assess the situation. And if you are making public statements, you are giving fodder to the plaintiff's lawyers. So my advice is just be quiet and turn off comments on any social media posts, because that is often where the dumpster fire is happening and people are looking to tune in for that. And so those would be my couple pieces of advice if you're dealing with some serious negative press and you've had to hire lawyers. If it's just like negative online reviews, I had to do this for a couple of years for Sam Jones Barbecue, respond to all the negative reviews. If you ever want to amuse yourself, go to Google and read what people say about the cornbread at Sam Jones Barbecue, the traditional Eastern North Carolina cornbread. It is quite amusing. So here's what I would say. Respond quickly and consistently. Understand that you are not just responding to this one person. You have a broader audience. You are really speaking to anybody who would be looking at Google reviews of your business. And so you just want to come across as responsive and professional and wanting to correct the situation with this customer. And so, you know, in the Sam Jones context, we often wanted people actually to, if they had a complaint, to take it to the manager on site and deal with it at the restaurant, as opposed to having had a bad experience and leaving and then sharing the feedback. So kind of our standard response was always like, apologize. This is not up to our standard. We really encourage diners to speak to a manager so that we can deal with this immediately and get it corrected and make sure you leave having had a good experience. We would often try to move the conversation to a private interaction as quickly as possible. So you're always kind of like, we would love to get you in touch with the manager to see how that we can make this up to you. Please reach out via this email address. So those were or we would, if it was a food safety issue, Sam was insistent that we would flag, the owner wants to speak to you. And we would maybe include some language in there about like how we handle food safety. But you want your broader audience, your broader potential customer base that's looking for Google reviews to figure out if they're going to come to your business, to see you being responsive and handling it appropriately. Okay, so the next question is, how do I measure the success of a PR campaign, especially when it comes to increasing brand awareness or customer loyalty? So I often get questions about return on investment. And, I've only been doing this for about 4 years. My real experience and expertise comes from being a journalist and producer for a couple decades. And trying to connect return on investments and PR and measurements of success, it's just very squishy. I don't know how to get at it. The only thing that anybody ever shared with me, and I share this with my clients, is ad value, which is, what would it cost you to buy an ad in this publication? So it's like, you got to mention in the News and Observer, what would have cost for you to run an ad in the News and Observer? And so I pretty consistently offer ad value so they can see, you've spent this much money on my services. This is how much you got equivalent in ads, would have paid for if you'd bought ads in the publication. But what I would say, press coverage brings kind of a legitimacy to your business that ads do not, because you have been deemed newsworthy. And it is a herd mentality in the press, I would say. I always paid attention. If some press release came into me, or somebody had gotten noticed by a bigger publication, say Southern Living or the New York Times or the Washington Post, I'm paying attention to what those larger media outlets are covering and deeming newsworthy in my market. And so it brings, it just raises your profile in a way that I can't even quite explain, because journalists pay attention to that. And so, and you see it, press begets more press. I have a lot of clients who, or not a lot, but I've had clients who, haven't even opened their restaurant and they want to be in food and wine. And I'm like, well, the News and Observer hasn't written about you yet, so let's start there. And that's kind of how it works. You really do have to build coverage at the local level, and then you can kind of break through to regional and national press. I'm going to call out this customer loyalty thing, because that's not my job. My job is to raise the brand awareness marketplace and get people potentially to come through your door. It is what you do when that customer comes through the door that will generate customer loyalty. I can't do that for you. The next question is, what are the most common mistakes a small business can make in their PR efforts, and how can I avoid them? I would say passing up organic opportunities, not, for whatever reason, not feeling ready, not feeling prepared. That is, you're missing out on a huge opportunity there, and I beg you not to do it. The other thing I see is being inconsistent in messaging. So please understand that when a reporter gets assigned a story related to you, or a press release comes across, they're going to immediately look up and see every other piece of coverage that has been written about you, and at least scan it to make sure they understand, see what's been written about, see if anything's been written about this project or you before. And if they notice inconsistencies, we're trained to notice inconsistencies because we have to make sure we understand the story correctly. And so if we notice that they said this at one point and this to another media outlet, that's an immediate red flag in my mind as a former journalist. Like, that's something I gotta get buttoned down. And so I really urge my clients to have their talking points down so that we avoid that. Because what you don't want is a reporter being unsure that what you're saying is accurate. And the other part of that is over promising and under delivering. So you really do not, especially if you've got like a new project on the horizon, you really do not want to say it's going to be X, Y, and Z, and then it only ends up being X for whatever reason. Just because then moving forward, reporters are just going to be skeptical about the news you have to share and what you're saying about the projects that you're doing. So you just really, it's better to kind of under promise and over deliver than over promise and under deliver. It's just, you want to save your credibility with the media. Okay, so I left this question for the last one, and then I see there's maybe some questions in chat, and we'll get to them. How can small businesses with limited budgets effectively leverage PR to compete with larger brands? And I left this one for the last one because this is very challenging. This is the hardest question. I'm dealing with this right now with the owner of Diced, which is a local kind of salad restaurant. People do not know that is locally owned. And so that is an absolute challenge for her, that she has 3 locations. She's opening her 4th downtown, and people don't know it's not a franchise. And so, you really do want to lean into the fact that you are locally owned in kind of every communication you put out there. The media wants to champion locally owned businesses, local small businesses. Consumers want to support you. And you just have to be really consistent in your messaging, not just in PR, but like in your space, on social media, on your website, and any kind of PR outreach and newsletters that you send to your customers. That just really just needs to be something you echo over and over and over again. And that's the leverage you have, but you are competing against much bigger budgets and much bigger entities. And it is tough. I'm not gonna lie about that. So there is my email. If anybody has any questions, I will stop sharing my screen and open it up.
You can also drop your questions in the chat if you don't want to turn your mic on.
Here's a question from Trish. Hi, Trish. How have influencers changed the way you promote businesses? Yeah, I mean, Trish, you would probably know better than me, but so I feel like influencers, content creators have always been part of the ecosystem in the 4 years that I have been doing this. When I was a reporter, it wasn't so much a thing. You know, my approach is really to try to find the good ones. I talk to a lot of other PR professionals. I talk to a lot of marketing directors in town, and like I ask them, who do you enjoy working with? And I really try to steer those people to my clients. That is really my and so it is part of it. If you have a budget for it, great. If you don't, try to find those like micro influencers who are really trying to come on up. Be a little wary, I would say. I've had influencers reach out, especially around restaurant openings, and they want to come in for a meal, and that's fine. We're happy to accommodate them. But if their follower count jumps exponentially in the time since they first reached out to when we're actually getting around to arrange the dinner, I'm really wary that they're buying followers, and so that's not particularly helpful to my clients. Let's see. Yeah, if you're seeing Tara Lynn's comment in the chat, this is really great advice. She's absolutely right. Photos and video clips to local media, even if they don't show up, that is absolutely a part, especially ribbon cuttings, grand openings, that kind of thing. You always want to do that because you never know. You never know if it's a slow news day or a slow weekend and they need content. The other opposite of that is like, you might have rearranged an interview with a TV reporter like I did, and then of course there's like a tornado in Eastern North Carolina and they get pulled off to cover that. So sometimes things fall through and you just have to kind of roll with it. And I also explain to my clients that sometimes I'm shouting into the wilderness and I don't get any response on stuff. And it's because I don't understand or know what the fire hose of information is that's coming into their inbox on any one day or any 1 hour or whatever. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. And that is just kind of the nature of the beast.
Andrea, one thing I forget about often is like looking in the back, like Carrie Magazine and Raleigh Magazine. And a lot of times they do those spotlights for like the ribbon cuttings. And I think sometimes we're always thinking like the immediate coverage, but still being able to get that print coverage for special events, or like if somebody like wins an award.
Right.
Question, how have you seen trying to get some news or share information, maybe Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn?
Oh, you mean afterwards? Like
Maybe afterwards, or yeah, like, or what's your advice with being able to maybe share some of that news? Like, I would assume LinkedIn may be better depending on what industry you're in.
yeah,
Or if you do get press, where's the best place and how to share it with your followers?
yeah. So I think if you're the business, share it on all platforms. Why not? I depending upon the coverage, like sometimes I'll share coverage that my clients get. Mostly it's Facebook or in my stories on Instagram. But if it's I don't know, I'll also share on LinkedIn. I think it kind of depends on and please, 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 please create a press page on your website where all this stuff can be posted. That is often like when I was a reporter and I was first researching a company, it was so helpful to have all that stuff in one place. Yeah, I would just for social media sharing of any news coverage you get, I'd share it on all platforms. And I would say Raleigh Magazine and Walter both have like event post-event coverage. So that's definitely something, if you have pictures from an event, a grand opening party or whatever, that you can share. And they're often asking for images. So I know at least twice in the last year, Walter has said, do you have anything for Whirl? And I'm like running around trying to find clients who have stuff for their Whirl, which is like their social pages. Anybody else? I know I threw a lot of information at you.
I have one follow-up on the press page because this was something I actually just created for my business. While I know like have the featured articles, do you have on that page? Because generally, yeah, there's an about page, but do you also include like do you have recommendation on what else to maybe include on that press page just to make it easy for them so they don't have to click around, or do you just keep your featured articles?
I like, I have two recent clients who I like kind of like their press pages, and they just kind of go back historically in time. So like Big Spoon Roasters has a really nice press page. Longleaf and Rhodes Motor Lodge, which are both Loden hospitality properties, have really nice press pages if you want to see how they did it. And I think their press page is separate from their about page. But it's just a really quick hit way for a journalist to assess, is this business worthy of my time and coverage effort kind of thing? Who else has written about them? What's compelling about their story? So you hit the about page and the press page. How does the News and Observer decide to cover a food business? What are they looking for? You'd have to ask Drew Jackson. Funnily enough, so this is how I think of it. Each media outlet is different. What stories they find interesting are different. And so part of what my job is to figure out that puzzle for my clients. So, and this is hard because this is why I wanted to kind of start with like how newsy is your news, because essentially what I have to train my clients on is news judgment. So I have to explain to them what about their company is newsworthy or would be attractive to write about for the News and Observer or for whatever. So, so the way I might attack that question or answer that question is I would look at like the last dozen bylines that Drew Jackson did and look at his last 12 stories and see, what are they? Are they mainly restaurant openings? Are they mainly trend stories? Is he doing any profiles? Is there anybody other than Drew writing about this stuff? Is there an opportunity on the business desk? They have a service journalism desk, which tends to do more topic oriented stories. Is there a pitch that I could do there that's related to my business? So you really do kind of have to look at if your goal is, I want a story in the News and Observer, then you have to really figure out by reading the News and Observer, what are they likely to say yes to? What kind of stories are they doing? How can I get my name in there? Anything else? Maybe not.
All right. Thank you so much, Andrea. That was really, really helpful. And everyone, this was being recorded and there was a lot of info in her slides. So if you want to go back and watch this, we will have it posted on shoplocalraleigh.org, as well as on our YouTube. channel. And so you can go back and, take more notes or get, if you missed the beginning. But thank you so much. And we really appreciate you sharing your wisdom in this for our small business